The Portfolio Composer, episode 196.
You're listening to the Portfolio Composer podcast with your host and coach, Garrett Hope, where he teaches you what it takes to master the business end of writing music through mindset, marketing, and business skills. Make sure to sign up for the newsletter at theportfoliocomposer.com for exclusive offers, business insights, and information not shared on the podcast. And now, for this episode of the Portfolio Composer.
The thing about money is that money does not actually cause things. Money is reflective, not causing. It means that money reflects whatever's going on in your head, in your life. And money is a place we all get tangled in. And so what I try to do is help people get untangled.
This episode is brought to you by Dorico, the music notation software from Steinberg. Just released, Dorico Pro 2 is a major new version, including features for musicians working in film and TV music and in jazz, rock, and pop. Steinberg have also released Dorico Elements, a new entry-level application that packs all of the essential power of Dorico Pro into a simple, streamlined package that is ideal for those getting started. Find out more later in the show. Hello, and welcome to episode 196. I am your host and coach, Garrett Hope, and I'm very excited about this episode. This episode was recorded from a live webinar that I did this last summer, the summer of 2018, as I ran the Summer Challenge, the first Portfolio Composer Summer Challenge, where we were learning how to copyright, which means how to write words that sell. Copywriting, not copywriting as in registering your work that you own it with the U.S. government copywriting, the other kind of copywriting. And I invited Tain to come and be the guest. Shell is my personal coach and has helped me work through lots of my money knots, and she's really an expert at untangling those sticky issues we have around money, earning money, thinking about money, and setting our kind of money temperature, if you will. This was a really, really valuable conversation, and I think you're going to get a lot out of it too. But before we get into the interview itself, I want to let you know that the live events are happening in Chicago. So on Saturday, November 10th, we've got two things going on. First, there's a career launching workshop, which I'm hosting in partnership with Columbia College Chicago. And then in the evening is the live episode 200 podcast interview with Stacey Garrett. And it's going to feature performances of her music, including a premiere of her new piano-viola arrangement of the Viola Concerto Krakatoa. So these performances will be by the Gaudete Brass Quintet and Michael Hall, and it's going to be an incredible event. You really don't want to miss it. So if you want to get ticket information, you can find the events on Facebook, or you can join the mailing list. And that's really easy to do by going to theportfoliocomposer.com. And right there, as you scroll down on the landing page, you'll see multiple ways that you can get onto the list. Just plop your email address in there and you'll start getting information, because I'm promoting this heavily because we're less than a month away. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this interview. Be sure to reach out to Shell. She can be found at shelltain.com. That's SHELLTAIN.com. She has a free little quiz you can take so you can kind of figure out what's going on with your money issues before you make any kind of commitment. She's a wonderful individual and extremely smart. All right, enjoy. So our guest today is Tain. Shell is a coach, and in full disclosure, she is my coach. I have hired her to work with me so I can work out my money knot issues, of which there are many. And I think a lot of you are like me. We are creatives. We want to be out in the world making things better, commenting and participating. And we never learned how money works, what money really is. And because we have a scarcity mindset in the arts, and we view things as a zero-sum game, there are many, many problems. So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce all of you to Shell, and I need to give a giant hat tip to Arthur Brewer, who's on this call, who has been featured on the podcast, is a wonderful composer himself, who introduced me to Shell. So thank you, Arthur, and welcome to the Portfolio Composer and this summer challenge, Shell.
Hi, I'm glad to be here. I love untangling money knots. Yay.
And you're so good at it. Let's just start at the beginning, Shell. Can we just learn a little bit more about you and how you came to be doing this work of helping people with their money knots?
Okay, I love talking about that. So I'm what I call a recovering accountant. I spent many years being the CFO controller, like 10 years, being the CFO controller for a bunch of companies in the 80s, mostly for some bizarre reason, American subsidiaries of Japanese companies. So it was me and 12 guys on boards of directors, and I was the money person. Now, so that means that I understand money. There is another component in this, which is really important, in that I was an only child in the 50s, and my dad wanted me to understand money. He didn't necessarily do the things that he taught me, but he wanted me to have a better relationship with money, in essence. And so he started me really young, and he made it really fun. So money for me, unlike 97.5% of people, has always been kind of a logical, simple, easy thing to fuss with, at least in our day-to-day money stuff. I want to make a distinction to begin with between the stuff that goes on in the stock market and all that junk and what we actually do in our own lives and in our businesses around money. Mm-hmm. So that's a place that to me always made sense. So life goes on, and I, become a recovering accountant, meaning I stopped doing that. And I discovered this thing called coaching, and I was really excited about that. And I took training, and I got all sorts of good stuff. And it was ironic because my very first sort of workshop was about money, and I would talk to people about money, but I would sort of say like, okay, now let's get back to the coaching, as if money wasn't a coachable value. And of course, it turns out that money is a big, huge thing for everybody. And I'm going to say a really important thing right now that everybody needs to get, which is the thing about money is that money does not actually cause things. Money is reflective, not causative. It means that money reflects whatever's going on in your head, in your life. And money is a place we all get tangled in. And so what I try to do is help people get untangled.
No, that's awesome.
Is that enough in that pile? Yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah. I love, and I want to dig into this probably to start, the idea of money is just a reflection. Mm-hmm. Before we go down that road, I just want to read it because we've had some people come onto the call since we started. Mm-hmm. You are muted and your video is off, but there is a chat bar, so you can find a button to open up your chat. And this is a great way to ask questions or to be a part of the conversation as we're participating. And Shell may ask for your interaction, and that's where you're going to do it until we wrap this thing up, and then we'll have a Q&A where I'll literally bring you in the call. Okay, so Shell, let's talk about that.
Okay, because I dropped a statistic, and I wanted, I hate people that drop a statistic and don't say where the hell it came from. Okay. So the 97.5% thing is that somebody did a fairly extensive survey with people of how many people, when you were a child, did you know how much your parents actually made? Not like we were in the middle class or whatever, but it was actually, money was talked about enough that you knew the actual dollars. And the stat is 1 in 40, which basically is 2.5%. That starts us with the whole big thing that I think is important about money, and that you and I talked about that we should talk about today, is this thing about how we learn about money and how it gets stuck. Mm-hmm. Because I think it's fundamental, and I have probably a different perspective than other people about it, but I think that what we learn about money comes from our parents, but it's twisted, because the first thing we learn, even when we're not verbal, when we're a little kid and we hear mom and dad talking about money, And it's weird. There's a weird emotional field when your parents talk about money. It's hinky. They're not happy. And as a kid, that's what we respond to. As a little baby, we respond to the emotional field. It's kind of, any of you that are married or in partnerships or whatever, if you've noticed, if you have animals, when you and your partner start fighting, all of a sudden, all the critters are in the room on your lap. And what they're basically saying is, no, calm down, don't do this. So as a little kid, when mom and dad talk about money, even if they're not necessarily fighting, there's some stuff in there. So the very first thing we learn about money is it's weird. The second thing we learn about money is we don't talk about it. We hear things from parents like it doesn't grow on trees. You're going to have to work really hard and never make any. Rich people aren't as nice as poor people. Oh, artists never make any. There's a big one. There's a big one. And I don't have composers, but I have a bunch of painters, artists. My mother was an artist. My great uncle was an artist. That kind of stuff in my family. And so I know that one. So we come at it from that perspective. And what happens is, what I call it simply, is we get stuck with a 5-year-old running our money. And I can give you some lovely examples of that.
Yeah, do, please.
Okay.
Elaborate.
So I will tell my favorite story, which is the one about me. Yay. So when I was 5, we moved to California. And in downtown LA, there was this great big red neon sign that said, Jesus saves. And I decided it was a bank. And that their bank was so cool that Jesus saved there. Because that's what it was. It was an advertisement for a bank. Here we go. Jesus saves here. And I didn't tell anybody because I thought I was just smart and clever and yay. And then several years later, when I discovered that it was indeed not a bank, it was actually a church. And then I didn't tell anybody that I was wrong because I didn't want to look like a doofus. Now, that's a very benign little kid thing. And it's funny because Jesus saves. But people have interesting things that their little kid part makes up. So I'm sort of building this thing here. So let me give you another story. So I was talking with a bunch of real estate people, and there's a lady that raised her hand and said, when I was a kid, we got one pair of shoes a year. They loaded us into the station wagon. They took us to town, and we got one pair of shoes, and that pair of shoes had to last the whole year. And I said, great. How is that now? And she got this really just stricken look on her face. And she said, oh my God, I have 75 pairs of shoes. Now, the part for me as the money coach was to recognize that the little kid part of her, the 5-year-old, has been running this money stuff. And her adult part didn't connect with that until she said those two things at the same time. The part of her that was buying 75 pairs of shoes was 5, because the 5-year-old had said, the problem is shoes. That's the problem. So if I have lots of shoes, I'll be secure and life will be good and everything will be wonderful. Except that that's not true, right? When you're an adult, shoes aren't going to cut it. There was this moment where her little kid part and her adult part met and said, oh, I've left the little kid in charge. And I could go on with stories and stories and stories of how that works for people. But does that kind of resonate for you, Garrett?
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm curious as how we can begin to recognize when our kid sense is still running the show in terms of money. Like what are the markers and how do we identify it?
Well, one of the really interesting markers, and the one that's going to be relevant here, is that when we get, most people, if we're in business in some way, often what we end up with is we run our personal money differently than our business money. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's like there's a plethora of accountants that can't do their personal stuff, but they're doing everybody else's money. It's just pretty funny. So that's one way. But when you're self-employed, which being a composer is sort of the definition of self-employed, then it gets a little muddled because you take more personally that thing of having to ask for the money and how much am I going to charge to write this piece of music and how do I do that and where's the models for it? And as I was mentioning to you when we started before the call here, that a bunch of people have contacted me and done my little quiz that's on my website. And anybody that hasn't and wants to, Merry Christmas, go ahead. And they had a variety of answers and a variety of scores on the quiz, but everybody felt challenged by the pressure of trying to earn and kind of trying to have tension. They have tension around earning money. That was the thing that was consistent with all the people of your group that answered my quiz. And so I'm thinking that tension is mostly stuck in that little kid part that says, I don't know how to do this. I'm supposed to charge for this. What do I do? And so, and another thing to answer your question more specifically, one of the things that you can look at is what are the behaviors that you have around money, meaning the emotional behaviors. So do you procrastinate dealing with money? Do you avoid it? Do you just sort of say, yeah, never mind? Do you let things fall with it? Do you get angry about it? Those are kind of little kid coping mechanisms.
I can speak from my own life to that. Can I contribute just to be?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because otherwise I'll babble.
I think a couple of the markers you mentioned. First off, I'm really organized with my bookkeeping when it comes to my businesses, and I have multiple businesses that I manage. And even though I dislike bookkeeping, I do it, and I keep track of every cent that comes in and every cent that goes out. But when it comes to my personal account, I mean, I'm monitoring that so I don't go like below zero. But the idea of having to pay the bills fills me with dread.
Yeah.
And sometimes when it comes time to pay the bills, I don't even want to check the balance because I don't want to look at the number.
Yes.
Even if I know that I'm going to be okay.
Yes. So would that be an adult behavior or a kid behavior?
A kid behavior, I suppose.
Yeah. So, I mean, the point is, it's not I want us all to understand that little kid part that we have left managing this has been doing a valiant job for most of us. I mean, if you think about it, at whatever age we're at, if you had actually given a 5-year-old this job to do, look at how successful they've been. But it's over their head. So, what I'm saying is I don't want people to get angry about it. It's more like embracing that part and saying, gee, thanks. And maybe I should have maybe I should keep that part for helping me make cookies and play trains with my kids or something, but have a different part of me managing my money. Because, I mean, you're showing it right there. You handle your business money differently than your personal money. Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing that for some of the composers, because the two things are so close, it gets even more muddy. But if you're coming up with like, I don't even want to look at it, because that's an interesting childlike response, because it's like, I don't want to look at it. It might be really scary, and the odds are that the fear of the scariness of looking at it is worse than if you looked at it and found out, even if it was negative, even if what you found out wasn't great, then you could go, oh, well, okay, I have to do something about that.
Right.
The fear is worse than that.
Yeah, that's what I found to be true.
Yeah.
I think another thing that happens for composers, I can testify to my life and the composers I work with, is that there's this mentality that, as far as I can tell, comes from this 19th century concept of what it means to be a creative type.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that artists don't make money. Like that's the paradigm from which we begin. And I think that that's perpetuated because when we study music history, we talk about how these composers died poor, they didn't make money, but some of them were actually fabulously wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Were poor managers of money. And so can you talk about that, this coming from that framework?
Well, it's a mindset that we have adopted, and it's like the glass is half empty, glass is half full.
Mm-hmm.
The truth is there's 2 inches of water in the glass. How are you looking at it? So one of the little gifts, tools, whatever, that I would like to suggest is every time in your head there is some kind of little place that says, but artists can't make money. I would love you to follow that immediately with something like, except when they do. because part of, I'm talking about brain science a little bit here. This is part of what happens is we build these neural pathways where all the like information piles up in a neural pathway. And the neural pathway for most of our brains that say artists can't make money, I can't make a living as an artist, I can't do that, blah, 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 is a LA freeway system. And the pathway that says I can make a living as an artist and I can be very comfortable and happy and wealthy and all that good stuff is a go path. And if we can at least just put a little sticker in it every time we say that, we're going to notice how often we've been saying it, but we're also going to start building that go path into a bigger freeway, which we need to do. Because the truth is, it's like, I love the thing where, or I love meaning think it's weird. When the economy has some trouble and there's 7% unemployment, people panic. Oh my God, I can't get a job. Oh my God, there's no work. Then people will literally not go out and look for work. And I'm sorry, 7%. 93% of the people are employed. I can be in that percentage. Mm. Now, granted, it's different as an artist because, there's a lot of subjectivity into whether or not somebody is going to hire you to do a composition or not, and all of that there's a lot of mess in there. But if you hold it, of course, this is going to work. Of course, it's going to be valuable. Of course, I call this of courseness. But if you hold it differently, then people will receive it differently when they will feel that confidence.
So you're saying it really, we need to change our mindset, and we can start by doing that by changing the words we use when we talk to ourselves. Absolutely.
Completely. And one of the tricks about this is that if I say to you, do not think of a purple elephant, guess what's in your head?
Purple elephants.
There they are. Big trunks. There's that elephant. You missed the arm gesture with the trunk thing, but it's good. But the point is that we don't actually hear the negatives. So I was working with somebody on a teleclass years ago and people were talking about sort of that concept of affirmations, positive statements. And this one woman said, well, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I said, okay, so what's your affirmation? And she said, I don't want lack. So what she was telling her brain is lack. Mm-hmm. Because we don't hear the don't. But it sounds, I love the fact that this stuff that sounded wooey before and metaphysical, et cetera, we now have brain science that says you build the neural pathway around what you repeat. And that's the go-to place. So if you want a different result, you need to build the neural pathway around the result that you want.
Yeah.
So I will attract the clients that are perfect for me. I will attract the compositions and I will be paid for them. Even though and initially you want to do it with the level at which your brain doesn't say, yeah, right, you're on what Sunday is that going to happen? I mean, take moderate steps.
Sure. It has to be believable.
Yeah, it has to be believable. And it's really about building a place where you're not projecting to the client. I mean, part of the problem here is that if you kind of come in and you say, I could compose something for you that doesn't say to that orchestra or that group or whatever that you're confident about what you're doing. And when and to get down to the nitty gritty here, if when it comes to asking for your fee, you say, well, it's this much, but if it's raining, or if you have 13 people coming instead, or if it's Tuesday, I can make a discount, and you're basically putting it out there and then backing away.
Sure.
And that said, if you were on the other side, if you're going to buy something from somebody and they're not sure of the value of it, then you think they maybe can't do it.
Okay, so you've opened up an interesting thing where I wanted to go to anyway in the time we have left. But you seem to be saying that we need to be projecting the confidence and the value that we have to offer. That's what you're kind of saying right now.
And even if we could maybe, because projecting sounds a little like you're trying to push it out there.
Okay.
And I just want to make this distinction of that you're going to stand in it. Like, that's who I am. I'm a composer.
Just possess that.
Yes. Have it be, I mean, this is a thing that's sort of nebulous, so it's hard to have specific language about it, but have it be a sense of being and stance. I'm a composer.
And I'm worth this.
And I'm worth it. And you notice it's not like I'm worth it, but it's like, well, I'm worth it. Of course. Like, duh. Like, huh? Of course.
Right. So as you know, part of what we've been doing here this summer is I've been running a 30-day challenge on learning how to copyright, which is writing words that sell. Because ultimately, we have to both sell ourselves, which is the service of writing music, and we have to sell the product of our art, which is recordings, and it's sheet music, there's multiple manifestations of this. And this is one of many points of resistance I think creatives have, and specifically, I know that composers do. How can you, what I want is help actually in getting past asking for the sale, because we're so bad at saying, buy my stuff. Because at some point we actually have to say that, buy my music, hire me, and I am worth this. But we really struggle to do it. So we kind of soft pedal the sale, and then no one really knows what we want, or there's a whole bunch of things. Is my question shaping up in your mind? Is this making sense?
Yes, and so there's distinctions about how people approach this.
Okay.
Whether or not you specifically ask for the sale, I want to go to a sort of a different thing, in that I think as a composer, as many things that we do, what we want to do is create a relationship with the person who's going to buy the composition.
Okay.
Because we do business with people we know, like, and trust.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's basic, simple stuff. Uh-huh. And so how do I get to know, like, and trust you? Well, I feel like you're actually paying attention to me, and that you're looking at what I want and need instead of telling me necessarily how I mean, yes, here's compositions I've done. I've done, a lot of things. And what are you looking for? And so I'm less about, I really think that, I'm sorry, I'm sort of mangled here, but I think that what's true is once you have created a relationship and a rapport with the client, and they have a sense of you, they will say to you, so what would you charge to make a composition for me? I do. I really think, I mean, it's how I work. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have to figure out when they say, what would you charge, how you're going to talk about it. But have you established rapport enough? I mean, one of my first things with clients is if somebody meets you and says, oh, you're a composer, great. What would you charge to make a song for me? Don't answer it at that point. That's the wrong time to answer that. What you're running into there is the little critic voice in their head that says, oh, crap, he might actually buy this. Let's get the hell out of here. And money is the first thing. It is a very cool way to avoid moving further because you can blame it on the money.
Yeah, man, have I experienced that? Or I feel like I've built rapport, and when we get to the what do you charge phase, I completely clam up.
Yes.
And anything, there's a fear
yes.
around saying, even if I've kind of done the mind work and I say, I know what I'm worth, and I've done the research and I know what other composers are charging, what common rates are for a service or a score, anything. But when I have to say, I want you to pay me this, it's difficult.
And so what happens though is when that happens, you then start trying to backpedal and soften it. And what I want you to do, what I want everybody to do is when you get to that point and you've done your research and you don't say any of that. You say, I will charge you X dollars for that composition. And then the thing I want you to do is be quiet. Just stop right there. Just lay the little puppy out there. If there's some logistics like I will charge you X dollars and that will include this many sessions for orchestration or some detail stuff, but that is not talking about why that's good, how that's okay, backpedaling, just drop the money. And then, because the thing is that as you start doing all that backpedaling, you're now creating blockades and questions in their heads that they hadn't even thought of until you brought it up. Like, oh crap. And what you want to do is wait and see, do they have a concern or an objection, and what is it? And then handle it. But be quiet so that they can think about it. They may need to think about it. And as you keep babbling, you're going to give them stuff to be negative about. Because, in general, let us bust this. Having a piece of music composed for most people is not a necessity.
Right.
It is a heart place. It is a dream place. It is an ego place. It's some place that is engendering, and I think I've got that tingle in myself that says, this is smart, Shell. Go here. So it is some place that is engendering a dream for a person.
Yes.
So, or a dream for a community, or a dream for a, marching band, or whatever it is. So build the dream with them first. Have them feel that you are an advocate for their dream in this composition. And so then the money.
Sorry to interrupt you, but if we were to put that in normal marketing speak, that would be figuring out what their desires are or their needs, and then demonstrating how we can then meet that need or desire.
But the demonstration is less important.
Okay.
Than the dream, because it's us. We get engaged with, well, I'm going to do these 12 steps, and you're going to, and people only want that if they're nervous. But most people that are going to hire you guys, they don't know what composing is about unless they're, unless it's an orchestra that says blah, blah, blah. But we want this and we want the bassoons to be, and blah, blah. Yeah. But okay, so I want to digress a little bit. There is a little relationship model that I want to throw in here. So it may sound weird, but I think it's valuable here. And it's sort of about romantic relationships, but there's a model that looks at sort of 3 phases of relationships. So the first one is called the sentient essence, and that's that spark thing. Like, ooh, you're cool. It doesn't have a lot of words around it. It's just you meet somebody and there's some kind of little spark, some kind of little ooh. And it doesn't always mean it's romantic, but it's like that could be my best friend or whatever. Then what we do is we dream together. If you think about it, when you meet somebody new that you have some sort of simpatico with, then you start talking about what books do you read, or what do you like to do, or do you do this? We're dreaming. Then, as a relationship continues, we get into this thing called consensus reality, which is the part where people are earning a living and having children. In that model, rocks are hard, water's wet, get stuff done. When a relationship falls apart, it's because they forgot the sense and essence and they stopped dreaming. So if you're going to build a relationship, you can't really control the sense and essence thing, that spark thing, because it's probably chemical, but you can create dreaming.
Sure.
And see, the thing is, to me, if you're at the beginning, you're doing the dreaming and then you start telling them how you're going to do it, you're now taking it out of dreaming into consensus reality.
This episode is sponsored by Dorico, the future of scoring. And we want to feature real Dorico users so you can know that real composers out in the world today are using Dorico to make their careers happen.
My name is Joel LaViolette. I'm a musician. I have several bands. We travel internationally. I also teach traditional Zimbabwean music. I think the obstacle that prevented me from jumping to Dorico right away was just that it's so new. I really wanted to watch it and see what features existed. I love just how clean and clear the output is. I do most of my composing in Cubase, but the notation aspect of Cubase isn't as pretty or as immediate as it is in Dorico. For me, working within Cubase and then being able to export the XML and drop that right into Dorico is just awesome. Just instantly have something that looks great, that my musicians can read easily. I'm not having to spend hours and hours having to edit the notation to make it convey what I'm trying to say. I don't know if this is a benefit or a feature, but I just think this is so cool. Something that's really awesome is a lot of times I'll write parts within Cubase that are pretty complex, and then I can bring that into Dorico, and then depending on the level of my students, I can really easily just highlight several measures and then simplify the rhythmic structure of it. And Dorico's really smart with how it handles that. I'll create a few different flows, and then I can have more and more simplified versions of the parts depending on the students that I'm working with. I'd say anybody that is a composer or is a musician that's needing to quickly write charts for their band to play, I would say it's worth the price of admission. It's just so fast and so easy to make different variations and things. So I'd say anybody that, if that sounds like you, definitely go for Dorico. I really appreciate that Steinberg has put the effort and the money into bringing in a great team to do this. It's really great to just see that there's a fresh approach and that those people on that team are being supported. And if you go to the forums there on Steinberg, you see it's really active, and you see that the developers are actually right there answering questions and, helping guys and ladies like me out who, might not even be coming into this from the engraving world. So it's great. I'm really happy that they're doing it.
The kind folks at Dorico have set up a special web page so you can go and download a free 30-day trial copy of Dorico. So go and do that. Have been using the program and I'm absolutely in love with it. Go to dorico.com/TPC. But does this mean that we're selling on the emotional level?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, how else do we, why on earth I'm going to have a composition made for my anniversary? What about that is not emotional?
Okay, I agree. You're doing that because there is a lot of emotion and value tied up into the relationship that you want to honor.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it feels a little sketchy to kind of play on other people's emotional needs for me to say, I can help.
Well, okay, but that has to do with ethics, right? And what is behind is your goal to just get a composition, or is your goal to actually have their dream come true?
Probably to have their dream come true.
Yeah. I mean, that's the point. I mean, yes, it could be that somebody is going to be just snarky and not actually, and this is why we hopefully have references and people who say, yes, he did what he said he was going to do, and it was great. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
But people, they don't really want to know all that fiddly junk. They want to know, are you going to do what I need? If, you mentioned Arthur, and Arthur's other sideline is being the techno guy.
Yes.
And I use Arthur for all that stuff. And I do not want to know the technical crap he's going to do. I just want him to fix it.
Those of you who don't know, Arthur owns a web design company, and you can listen to more about that if you find his interview on the TPC website. So
yeah. But I mean, I just bring him up because we both know him, but I don't, and he knows he's on the call here. He knows damn well that I don't want to know that stuff because I trust him.
Right. Christina here has asked a really good question in the chat. Do you see it? She says, if we want to stay in the dreaming stage, what about the details to cement the agreement?
Mm-hmm.
The goal is for their dream to come true, but I still want an agreement about the details.
In general, once they will ask the money question of, if you built the dream enough, then they will say something like, so how do we move forward? Or how do we do the details of this? And then you start doing that. I did that with you when you said, I want to be a client. And I said, here's how we do it. Here's the first session and the da-da-da-da-da-da. So it's just, I even when I work with real estate people, I work a lot with real estate people because houses are nothing but big, giant dreams, right? And we all know with real estate people that, maybe we don't, you guys don't know, but like the real estate people go in and they show the person the house that fit the criteria of 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 2 garages, and the people say, I don't like this. And then they show them another house that doesn't have all that criteria, and that's the house they want. Why is that? It's because of the dream. And the dream isn't about the 4 bedrooms and 3 baths. It's about the emotional content, the feeling they want to have in that house, and they're not looking at the dream. And I think it wastes a bunch of time. But hey, so yes, we do want. I'm a recovering accountant. I do want to get to the nitty-gritty and the details and how this is going to work and have it be organized. But I want to build the rapport first, that we have a relationship so we can work that stuff out. And that they feel like they're being heard. And I really get what they want, which means much more of them saying, here's what I need, and less of me saying, here's what I do.
Before we open this up for Q&A, and Shell, this has been tremendous. Thank you. I just want to ask one more question, because part of what we're learning to do and what we're practicing in the summer challenge is writing emails and landing pages for cold audiences. So we haven't quite built the rapport yet.
Right.
So so
that becomes an invitation.
Okay, so the copy should be an invitation showing how we can help fulfill their dream.
Maybe showing an example of a dream we did fulfill.
Okay.
And so we can really talk about what the dream was and then how the result was, and not so much about what the hell you did in the middle. They wanted this, and here's the result that they got. They had this perfect composition for their child's bar mitzvah, whatever. I mean, I try to think outside of the box of what composers could do, but it's just a place of what you want is an invitation. You want to have something that's juicy enough. And I'm suggesting too that you offer to have a conversation with people that's juicy enough to come talk to me. Talk to me. Tell me what you want. Does this sound interesting to you? I mean, it's a coaching kind of thing too, that we do, coaches, inevitably we ask these, so how is that for you? Or what do you want? Or, what would, so in your marketing writing, so would a dream would a composition like this be interesting to you? What parts would you change about it? What things would be different for you? Get people to put themselves, marketing is about having them see themselves in what you do, which is why we don't bring up the money to begin with, because that's the easiest way to go away. Because I want to say about the money thing is porridge in the Three Bears. Remember the Three Bears?
Is that too much or too little?
Yeah. The odds of whatever you say as that money thing at the beginning, before they know anything about you, the odds are it's either going to be too little or too much. The odds of you having the perfect temperature porridge are slim and none. So don't do that. And if you do it with somebody that's really not interested, they're just going to tell everybody they know that's what you charge. So they won't call you.
Interesting.
Yeah. Weird, possibly. Are there other questions over there that need a response? I like Theodore having I do create and I compose and I am skilled. And I love that comment that he's got of standing in, this is who I am.
There was one above that. Dan had asked about how do we set our commission rates, and Christina had answered, because there's this resource that was created. It's almost dated now. It might be 20 years old or so, where an organization gathered common commission rates for different styles of music and different ensembles, and that's a good place to start.
Yeah. I think that the thing that's interesting too, and I kind of wish this wasn't true, but people may notice that as you and I are talking about these things, we've not actually said the actual dollars. And I've not said the actual dollars because it depends on where you are, who your clients are, what's going, where you are in the country. If you're in New York City, you're going to get a different rate for a composition than you are in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's going to happen. So part of it is and I have had the experience now. I'm a coach. I'm in a different thing. And I generally try to charge the same rates, but I have had the experience with several people who were quote unquote uber wealthy, that my rate wasn't lunch for them. So they didn't show up.
So they didn't have enough skin in the game, is what you're saying.
They didn't have enough skin in the game. So, and it may be less about skin in the game and composing, but it may be more about ego of, yes, this was a valuable thing we did. We spent this money to get a composition. Yay. Aren't we clever?
Right.
So there's a little reading of that. And not that I'm saying that, you want to be all over the place, because it is a little bit more of an accounting thing to make sure you bill them the right amount and not the wrong amount, and, all that stuff.
Sure.
And I'm assuming that you do some sort of contractual agreements.
I always advocate using a contract, and I use a contract with all of my commissions. That way, expectations are clearly delineated.
Yes.
If there were disagreements, there was a course of action to take.
Yes.
I'm going to, before you continue, I want to invite people to ask their questions. But if you want to interact and speak with Shell directly, there is a way, and I'm not sure where the button is because my interface as the host is different, where you can raise your hand. So if you click raise your hand, I'll be able to see that, and then I will unmute you and I'll turn your video on, and you'll be able to speak directly with Shell. And while we let people figure out how to raise their hands, would you like to address Liberty Ann's question, which she asks in the chat bar, where she says, what would you say about the putting yourself out there topic, meaning actively seeking out clients?
Sure. I would, that's great. I think that I would say that what you want to do is not have it come from an, oh my goodness, I need clients, but from a, I love doing this. I want to do more. I get jazzed by writing compositions. I particularly like working with this kind of situation. I can help, I'm going to use my own phrase. I can help untangle your musical knot, whatever that is. Yeah, absolutely. People need to know that you like doing what you're doing. They want to know that you want to do it. It sounds bizarre, but it's again, it's you hinted at, and just that thing about writing contracts. There's an important thing about managing client expectations so that you can meet them. If you don't tell them what to expect, then you're at the mercy of whatever's in their head, which can be wacky. I mean, and I would assume about something as complicated as a composition, then it needs to be, here's what you can expect. Am I just going to get sheet music? Am I going to get parts? Am I going to, what happens? And so I agree, manage that. And part of the initial management is to say, I love what I'm doing. I'd love to have more clients, and particularly love to do these kind of compositions. If you'd like anything like that, give me a call.
Mm-hmm.
But it's coming from that positive of, yes, let's do this, instead of, okay, please, sir, could I have some little compositions to do, please?
Then you feel, or you sound like a beggar.
The Oliver method, yes. Yeah.
So,
because we want to, do I want to hire somebody that's not good at this? Kind of not, because it's subjective too.
Do you think that helps demonstrate a little more social proof? But it's kind of a backwards social proof, because you're putting it out there yourself through your confidence.
Yeah. But okay, so this was in my head here, but we all know some artists that are bad. That the work that, there's a particular person I know in the area that I live in that does, I'm trying to think of a nice word to use. She paints. Okay, she paints. And she's getting people to pay ridiculous amounts of money. And I don't think she has as much talent in her little pinky as, makes me crazy. But the reason she does that is because she just has this stupid confidence about, this is great. See it, buy it. Yay. Now, I got to give her chops for that part.
I can name some composers like that.
That's what I mean. There's some composers that I remember when I was I've been a coach now for 18 years. And in the beginning, there was somebody that was in classes with me, and she could get clients just, snap of a finger, but they'd leave in 2 weeks because she didn't have the chops to do the stuff. And it is a challenge. One of the things that we've got as entrepreneurs, and you guys are entrepreneurs, is you've got both. You have to not only do the work, but you have to sell yourself.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. That's what I keep saying too. We are making art, and that should be our primary focus. But then once we're done with it, does it matter if we're not impacting the world, if other people aren't playing it, if people aren't hearing it? We have to find a way to put it out in front of the world, the right people who want to hear it. And that means selling it.
Yes. And I think, it's great that we have all sorts of talks and classes and conversations about marketing and selling and how to do it. And I hold myself a place, and I do think it's true, that we sell the best when we use the things we're naturally strong at. Mm. So if you're not good at a particular thing that everybody thinks you're like, I hate networking meetings. I do not like them, and I'm not good at them. When I was going to them, the best I did was gather a bunch of cards so I could then talk to people on one-on-one. Right. But that was smart of me to figure that out. because I'm not at my best doing that. So what I'm saying is when you're looking at how you're going to market so yes, telling people that you want to do stuff is part of what you do, then do that.
We have someone who's raised their hand.
Yay.
So I am going to bring Michael into the call and let him just ask you his question directly. So, hey, Michael, nice to see you. Hopefully your video will turn on shortly.
There we go. Hey, can you see me?
There he is.
Yeah.
Hi. How you doing? Hi, Shal.
Good.
So I'm doing a project which is called the Great American Coral Reef. I've been collaborating with a few local choirs to put this project together. It involves improvisation within with the choral ensemble. No two coral reefs. That's the blueprint of the piece. No two will be the same because each group kind of makes it their own through the words that they choose and the message that they want to convey, and the improvisation that they create in rehearsal. I've been working with an outstanding choral director. Her name is Dr. Doreen Farley here on Long Island, and she's been great with her feedback about keeping it simple, keeping the message simple, keeping the project simple. It's a very extravagant project, but I also got a little bit crazy with details. And she wants the message to be clear to each group what this actually is. The thing that she also said that really had an impression on me is with this project is that the big selling point of this project is me. Mm-hmm. And that was really sweet of her to say. But basically what she was saying is that the Skype rehearsals and the locally the meeting with the choirs and stuff is what people will really be interested in. And so what I decided to do was, and this is what I wanted to ask you about. This is all leading to this question. I was originally going to charge $80 for the score and the 10 rehearsal plans that bring people through the improvisation up to their performance. And then I switched it to $40 because Doreen said nobody's going to pay $80 for the workbook. And that makes sense. But then I said, a few days ago, I said, why not give it away for free? And so what I wanted to ask you about that, because what I'm actually thinking about is this. It's kind of like a selling up type of thing. I want the success of this project will be, like if 100 choirs around the nation opt in or more, and then it grows and grows because this is supposed to be, throughout the course of the year. And it's supposed to kind of be on and around Earth Day 2019, although, performances will be throughout the year. My question is this. What do you think about that? I'm giving away where they would work independently. There would not be any involvement with me. They'd have the rehearsal plans. They'd have the score. So they could create, they can improvise, they can do everything. Maybe I'll have some videos made up that I could, share with everybody that's involved, kind of like a coaching type of thing. But instead of charging for that material, actually giving it away, and then they have the option of opting up to participate, to work with me or to collaborate with other choirs to create a bigger choral reef. What do you think about the giving away for free?
No,
Don't do it.
Really?
Don't.
Whoa. Okay.
For free. Let me just be simple about that. Now, I like the idea of it ramping up into other things, but you're not holding the value of it. By not holding the value of the work that you do to put this together, you're not holding the value altogether of the work. Now, there is a place, I want you to charge for it, yes. And we want to have it be that the closer they get to working one-on-one with you, the more they pay.
Right.
Okay, so that part is fine, having it ramp up. And you might have some little thing you could give to people if you want to start, some little booklet, simple little 10-page, 20-page, here's how to start this yourself. When you get to this stage, then you come and play with me and you pay this much. And then when you get to the next stage, you play even more. And so it's ramping up. It's the pyramid thing in a positive. Okay? But if you don't charge something, unless you're going to you're giving it to school teachers or something. I just don't see that you're going to get people engaged in it if it's not got value.
Right. Well, I feel it has tremendous value. And one of the things that I am doing is reaching out to school teachers. It is any sort of involvement with me, though, would be actually for a fee. So, with the maximum being $600 is what I came up with, where I already have the blueprint in front of me, but getting their ideas and everything, I actually write the coral reef for them with their ideas. So, and there's different levels. There's, the 150 to 250, depending upon the, the Skype.
I still think you're holding yourself and the value of the work.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
I want to give you a phrase that I use a lot that is from when you were starting to talk about how that you have trouble sometimes keeping it simple.
Yes.
I want you to think of planning to be spontaneous. Because that's exactly what the work is that you do. You want to plan so they can be spontaneous. You want to set a structure so they can be spontaneous.
I'm not sure I follow.
Pardon me?
I'm not sure I follow what you mean by set up a structure so that they could be planned, so that they could be spontaneous.
If you're going to, you're doing improv, so you have a structure of the improv.
Yes, there's parameters that I set, a blueprint that I set, so that all the coral reefs will have a signature type of sound. Yeah,
so there's the plan, so they can be spontaneous. They then take the plan and blow it, and it's like jazz, in a sense.
Yeah. Right.
So just have that be in your head. You don't need a whole lot of planning, you just need a container.
Okay.
But I realized that I sort of busted the bubble, but I mean, you're in Long Island. You're not in Iowa. So people do have money to spend on things.
Well, that's true. That's true. I mean, I want to reach out to the people. I mean, there's a lot of, like, for example, I just had a consortium where 4 choirs were sponsored and other people paid their way.
Mm-hmm. And that's great too. That's
So I guess nobody got the material for free in a sense. I mean, they did, but they were sponsored. So I understand what you're saying. I wonder if maybe the little bit that I could offer is sharing the coral reef score and then saying, but if you want to buy the blueprint, the 10 rehearsals on how to actually achieve the sound, that's something maybe they pay up for. So
exactly. Give them something that entices, that gets them going on it, and then. I mean, basically, though, have it be that, here's the problem, and this is in general for everybody. If we give it to them, then they don't own it. That thing of largesse means that you end up with still the power of having done it, and they don't own that I took this step to be in this choir. Yay.
That's brilliant. I love that, because one of the things that I was going to do when we were writing our headlines was saying how your choir will own the experience.
Yes.
So that really goes in line with what I was advertising it as in the first place. If they pay into it, then there's an ownership to it. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to move this along because we have, for 2 reasons. Thank you, Michael, so much for your question.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Shell, we're getting a little bit of this clipping sound coming from your audio. I don't know if something's banging on your desk or not.
No, is this different now?
It's not happening currently, but when you were speaking with Michael, it was.
Well, I tend to be. I talk with my hands. Maybe that was it.
So, all right. Yeah. Well, I'm welcoming onto the call Dan. Welcome, Dan. You can ask Shell your question.
Hi. Thanks for talking with us. This has been really, really interesting. So just a little bit about my project. I'll try to be quick. I've been cold emailing orchestras and artistic administrators at orchestras and also conductors about either performing one of my recent compositions for orchestra or possibly developing a relationship and eventually maybe leading to a commission. And so it's pertinent to what you were talking about, but I'm sort of struggling with the going from cold to lukewarm before you even reach very warm in the relationship. So the responsiveness, I don't always get responses. I'm trying to get better at responses to my cold emails, but say I get a response and it may be in the lukewarm territory, but then the response might be something like, well, this sounds interesting. Check back with us in a few months, keep us updated, or, we're not programming this now, but maybe we want to program it in 2020. I've gotten a number of those. How do you turn, cold to cool to lukewarm to then very warm.
So part of the trick is you need to talk to them. You need to set up a phone call with them, because I know that the world is emailing and texting and all of that stuff, but you're going to create more relationship in 10 minutes on the phone than you are in emails back and forth. So I think that if you can set it up, yes, if they're responding to your email and that kind of stuff, that's great. Now, how do you make it so that, can we set up some time for a 20-minute phone call? Can we set up some,
So do you think maybe his initial email, like the purpose of that email and that copy should be to get on the phone?
Yes.
That personal connection.
Yeah, an invitation. Yeah.
Because sometimes I think we want to have people go directly to listen to our music or buy our score or program it, but instead you're saying he should go straight for the relationship.
Well, he should have both. Because the music will, here's some music to listen to, and I would love to chat with you, and the whatever way that you have it be, say, exploring what you're into musically, just so it feels not like call me so I can sell you something, but more like call me so we can share where you are musically, because like with that one that says, we might be looking at something next year. If you start chatting with them now, then by next year, they're going to feel comfortable with you.
Okay. What about the situation, and then I'll stop. What about a situation in which it's sort of like, it was almost like pulling teeth to get a response out of them, but then they did finally respond. You sort of get that air from the email, and it's sort of amorphous. It's hard to explain, but I've had.
Well, it's because there's so many people on spam and crap and stuff, that they're trying to make sure that you're real and that you're genuine and that you're not just blowing smoke up their skirts. I would not put a lot of weight in that. I would try to come. I think it's most important that we come and try to be who we really are. Just be yourself, bring the part of you that is engaging, that you don't have to work hard at. I think that part of what I'm just me, and it's a little wacky and a little interesting and a little, it's engaging because I'm being me. I'm not trying to be something else. So I think that's what actually works for people, because it's, again, know, like, and trust. So trust has to do with we don't smell anything weird. We don't get a weird sense that they're trying to do something to us, right? And like means that they're engaging with and they care about us. Yay. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
You're very welcome. Yay.
Thank you, Dan. All right, I'm going to turn your stuff off here. All right, so I see that Ted has his hand up too, so I'm going to invite Ted onto the call after I figure out how to turn Dan's video off. There we go. All right. Hi, Ted. You're unmuted. And
yes.
There you go. So your video should start quickly.
Okay.
Feel free to ask.
You had mentioned, Shell, first, thank you for this call. You had mentioned to Michael about not necessarily offering something for free. And one of the things that, as we were working on our headlines, was the use of something free. And one of the things that I've done with a couple of correspondents that I've had is to offer one of the sacred songs that I've written, and just for them responding to my initial.
I think that's great. I'm just saying, don't give away the farm.
Okay.
Just don't. Michael was talking about giving them a lot of free stuff.
Okay.
And we want to sort of do this little trail of breadcrumbs. So, there's a little free thing, and then there's a free conversation, perhaps.
Right.
But it's also that, there's another phrase that I have for myself. I call it generosity with boundaries. So great. I've offered that I will have a phone call with everybody on this call, and I will do that. And when I do that call, it's not like a pitch. It's like, what can I really do for you now? Boom. But you're not going to get me to do that every month for no forever because boundaries. So yes, a free song, sure. It's not you're writing them a free song. You have a piece you've already composed that you're letting, that's different. You see what I mean?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And I think, Shell, you please say if you disagree with this, but I think, Ted, sometimes it's something that's called the value ladder. So if you think of like a series of stair steps at the bottom level, the entry level where people are going to interact with you first, that's kind of what is often called the freemium, which is something you offer for free to begin a relationship, or in internet marketing, hey, give me your email address and I'll provide you with this for free. And then you start the discussion and then you step up. It's like, okay, well, now you have a low priced entry. And for you, that's Patreon at $1, right? Offers so much value. And then it keeps going up. So as she said to Michael, the closer they get to you, the more value you're offering, the more you can charge. But you begin the thing by ramping up this value ladder with something free.
Yes. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't want it to be a confusion of what I was saying to Michael is he's giving too much away. He kept, as he kept talking, it kept being, and I'll give them this and I'll give them this and I'll give them this. And it's like, well, wait a minute, let's give them a little and then have them own it, because there is that piece of when you get a little further in, they need to own what they're up to. I mean, I've had a lot of coaches that at the beginning want to give away coaching. And I'm like, okay, if you're going to do that, then you need that client to do something that balances that. So they go for every hour of coaching, they work 2 hours at a soup kitchen. It may not be directly to you, but it's some way that they have earned the value of the thing. So yes, that first piece, give them, but then after, you've got to have it quid pro quo, or you've got this situation where they're feeling beholden to you. And that doesn't feel good for most people.
Okay.
Is that helpful?
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Okay, well, we've been able to pick Shell's mind for 70 minutes so far. So Shell, thank you so much for your time. This has been really valuable. I appreciate it. I want to give you a chance to share any final thoughts or words before we say goodbye, if you have anything you'd like to say.
I've enjoyed myself. As you guys can tell, I just hate doing this. It's just no fun at all for me. I love playing with, everybody's different perspectives and what's going on. And I genuinely would love to talk more with a bunch of you. I could probably sit and do this all day. And I think the most important thing that I've said is for you to really get a place that you can stand in where you're confident about what you're up to. And there is that place in you that says, yes, here's the word, I deserve this. Something like that.
Sometimes that can be a hard place to get to, but I think that's a good place to try to get to.
It's a good goal to get to the place of I think that, we do better when we lean on what we're good at. It's just sort of simple to me. If we try to do better at that which we're not good at, we can go from being crappy to adequate. If we do better at that which we're already good at, we can go from being good to stellar.
Well, thank you so much, Shell. Thank you, everyone, for being on the call. Have a good rest of your day. And Shell, again, with much gratitude and love, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. This episode is brought to you by Dorico, the music notation software from Steinberg. The brand new Dorico Pro 2 introduces best-in-class support for composing to picture. Using the same powerful new video engine found in Cubase and Nuendo, attach a video to your project. Play it back via the dedicated video window and see thumbnails in play mode. Add markers at crucial points in the action and display them in the score. Use the new tempo automation controls in play mode to line markers up with beats, or find a tempo for the whole cue. New tools in play mode allow you to edit the tempo and dynamics of your music graphically, applying default curves to provide more nuance to gradual tempo and dynamic changes. Add lanes for MIDI controllers and draw data to bring your music to life. With Dorico 2's new automation tools, you can add realism and nuance to the virtual performance of your music, taking it one step closer to the stage or concert hall without leaving your music notation software. And that's only the beginning. Check out the brand new Dorico website at dorico.com/TPC to find out more.